We'll quickly go through book number 2, Unit 1, Anxiety Disorder, Panics and Phobias. So basically, it says that all of us will have anxiety. Anxiety, it's very common. There's some anxiety, like for example, anxiety of exam, and that causes us to study. So anxiety is not really bad; it works for good. But then, so here it talks about the nature of anxiety, so how anxiety works positively for us, and then how anxiety can be negative for us. So if we supposedly consider something as dangerous which is not really dangerous for us, fear, fear of something causes anxiety. So there is two kinds of anxiety: adaptive anxiety and pathological anxiety. Adaptive anxiety is like the anxiety of exam, and we study. That's something that is realistic fear. And pathological anxiety is unrealistic fear. So that's what is mentioned here. You can read through this, and in the process we use our cognition. There is physiological response, and there is behavioral level of response. So, in anxiety, now for the first two things, a panic attack and phobia. What is panic attack? Panic attack is an episode of intense fear or apprehension with a sudden onset. So, if you check, I watched a couple of YouTube videos to really get this into my brain. Panic attack. Panic attack is not something that the person is expecting that it will happen. It just happens all of a sudden. They'll be doing their work normally, they'll be talking normally, or doing something normally, and all of a sudden there is this panic attack. So it'll come as if they're like a heart attack, or they feel like chest pain and they're sweating, and it literally will feel as if it is so real. But then they'll be better off in 10. It reaches in 10 to 15 minutes, and slowly the victim completely gets overpowered by it, and then heals off. So it's like a fake alarm, but then it is so real to the person. I'm sorry for my book, just on. So here is the DSM classifications. I have made a short form for that, and you can make your own. NPD, South Carolina, North Police Department, South Carolina, whatever. So then I have written 1, 2, 3, 3, 4. That means there is 1 of N, 2 of P, 3 each of D and S, and then 4 of C. Okay, N is nausea, P is palpitation increases, paresthesis like feeling of like dizzy, or paralysis towards at the fingertips and things like that. This is paresthesia, they've written here. Okay. Dizziness, depersonalization. The person really loses the entire understanding about the time, or who he is, what they are up to. They might be doing something and they're completely out of that place. They feel they are dying, they're sweating and shaking, and shortness of breath, chills, choking, chest discomfort, and feeling that they're crazy. So this is NPD, South Carolina, 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, panic attack. Then they are given this picture, what happens to our body. In the brain, there is irritability and dizziness. Throat, there is choking, feeling of choke, and they feel as if there is a lump in the throat. Lungs, there is breathlessness, muscle tension, sweating, high blood pressure, heart palpitation, chills and hot flashes I've written, paresthesias. In intestine, they feel nauseated, like feeling like vomiting, and diarrhea. Okay, so you can write all those things here. Then there's a nice case study that's here. So this is a story of a young lady, Maya. She's in the, I think, in the train, and then she goes in the train, and she has this choking feeling, nauseated, sweating, and she gets a panic attack, and she feels I'm going to die. And there's another lady who gives her space in the train. She goes to the hospital, so she's fine now. But then the mere thought of traveling in a crowded train brings that fear of panic attack. Okay. Etiology. So in this book in particular, you have etiology, which is biological and physiological. So I have For easy thing, I made a chart like this. So panic attack, there's biological, physiological. Biological, genetic and brain biochemistry. Physiological, learning and cognition. I will share this chart with you even right now. As you're seeing, you can pause the video and maybe probably write this down. This is the next page. So you can pause and write this down later. Okay, that's enough because you'll pause. Okay. So biological, the genetic factor, it says that there is a possibility. The gene is yet to be discovered, but there is a possibility. Brain biochemistry, we speak about what happens in a panic attack, and there is these panic attack inducing substances like sodium lactate, carbon dioxide, caffeine, and all, which can enhance panic attack or create panic attack. Then they spoke about brain mechanism, hippocampus and locus coeruleus. These, they moderate the external and internal stimuli. Like for example, external stimuli is this thought of the train. Internal stimuli, like suppose the person is having a heartbeat fast, so these are stimuli that can trigger this. And then amygdala, which has a fear reaction. So amygdala produces noradrenaline activity that increases the heart rate. So that's the entire biochemical and brain thing happening here. Okay. Now when you come to psychological factors, it talks about learning and cognition. So learning and cognition combined, we have a graph here. So in the learning, it says that, for example, with regard to this Maya, the thought of the train, it creates a panic or a fear. So she's afraid of the fear of fear. So this is a learned phenomena. It's like conditional response. So it is oversensitive towards the cue, internal cue that she feels, or an external cue, as I told you about the increase in heart rate, which she would, or a person would think as if, okay, I'm going to get panic attack. That's external cue. But where in cognitive factor, they actually go one step ahead. Like the sensation is there, but interpretation, how the person interprets it further. That if they affirms it is a catastrophic, something negative is going to happen, that's when there's this automatic thought that is there. Automatically the person is feel that there's something going to happen. So everything is explained here. So trigger, external, internal, it's the same thing. So this is how we learn perceiving a threat through the sensation, and there is fear of fear. Here there's how the cognition work, body sensation is the same sensation, but it perceives it as, interprets it as catastrophic. So this is the entire picture of it. So there is a cognition bias. Cognitive bias is like they are erroneously interpreting it as a threat, right? Treatment tranquilizers, antidepressants, benzodiazepine. If we can remember drugs, it's good. I can't. I'm really not really that great with drugs. It's a new subject for me. But if you can, good. Then antidepressant and SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRI can be used. Psychotherapy, relaxation techniques and breathing techniques, exercises, cognitive techniques are used here. So that is about the panic attack. Wherein phobia is unlike panic attack. Phobia is intense or irrational fear of a particular object or something. So that means there's a focus attention towards an object. So phobia, as I told you, it's 3: specific, social, and agaro. Agaro is fear of like public places, or I won't be able to escape kind of a fear. Social is social causes, like social situations, like for example standing on the stage. Specific things particularly like cockroach or fear of heights, so those things. So that's what is here. You get the DSM-4 definition here, and then you'll see specific. There is animal, fear of animals, natural environment, blood injection injury, situations like elevator, bridges, tunnels, and other types. Okay. Social phobia, again fear of interviews and social phobia. Agoraphobia. Okay. So you have a case study which will help you. Coming back to again etiology, there's the biological factor and there's psychological factor. Psychological factor, now we have psychoanalytical added to it. In the first chapter we just had learning and cognition, right? But we have psychoanalytic here. Biological factor talks about temperament, plays a significant role. Person who's easily aroused, okay? So, and then it talks about preparedness, like I won't be afraid of something like a book, but I can be afraid of snake. So it's preparedness. Psychoanalytical theory says that there is this unconscious need of conflict. Like Freud had an experience with little Hans. Hans had issues with horses. He feared horses, but it was actually his fear towards his father which is projected onto the horses. So it's displacement of fear. So ego is trying to adjust the repressed fear, okay, by putting it onto something else. That's what psychoanalytical theory says. Learning theory, that conditioning that you learn, and you modeling. Bandura's modeling is explained here, like you vicarious learning, like you watch and see. Probably your person's mother was afraid of something, and so the child also learns. Cognitive theory is like again underlying belief, a core belief that something negative will happen. How do you interpret the sensation, the cognition behind it? So again we have a certain diagrams. If you can actually learn this, you'll be able to. It's easy. Okay. Anyways, so it's psychoanalytical says there's unconscious conflict and there is repressed ego. It's a defense solution and it comes out as displaced phobia. Behavioral, unconditional stimuli. There's a neutral stimuli, and neutral stimuli now becomes the conditional stimuli. Cognition, there's an underlying belief that something negative will happen. So automatic thought is that something is going to happen negative, and then the phobic reaction. In treatment, we have psychoanalytical therapies and we have behavioral approaches. In behavioral approach, if you phobic disorder, behavior therapy treatment has 5 wings to it. It's like step by step. First is like a relaxation technique. Start by systemic desensitization. Sorry. I'm confusing with something else. Okay, fine. Sorry. So behavioral approaches is systemics and desensitization, flooding, and relaxation. So systemic desensitization is like if I'm afraid of a snake, then my therapist would first start showing me the picture of snake, black and white, then color, then 3D, so slowly removing my sensitivity towards the fear and finally giving me the real stuff. That's desensitization. Flooding is like I don't know to swim, I'm afraid of swimming. My dad pushed me into the water and suddenly putting the person into the thing that they fear. That's flooding, and you have to be cautious in it because there is a chance of the person being traumatized. Modeling is learning by. Then cognitive approach, that was behavioral approach. Second is cognitive approach, teaching them, giving them insight about what's happening.